You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM, Crossing the Rubicon.
Tell everyone who you are, what you do.
I am Jennifer Maher, and I am an accredited life and executive coach, and I'm a trainer and facilitator as well. And I specialise in helping women to leave or exit unhealthy roles that are no longer serving them in the juncture that they're at in their lives.
Explain that to me.
I suppose they've been in the role for a long time, maybe too long, and there's that realization that there's no fulfillment anymore in a place that they've served many years of loyal service. And I suppose it's usually after their kids are starting to kind of maybe get towards school age, and they realize there's a lot of juggling to take place, and suddenly the role is just not cutting it. It's just not fitting into their lives anymore. It's not that they want to be at home. It's just that they want better balance. They want better recognition. They want more flexibility. They don't have the autonomy in their role anymore, because they know that they've got this bigger role outside of the day job.
But is that just part of life? Male and female, we'll all go through that. We can call it a midlife crisis. Is that just part of the journey that we live on?
I don't know if it's a midlife crisis. I think it's more of a realization that there's more, that they have more to give, and that I suppose their strengths and their skills and their talents are not being harnessed in the world that they're in, where they've shaped a career, and there's just not that fulfillment. It's an itch. It's like something that is just burning inside, and it's coming to the surface. I suppose maybe I wouldn't say it's a midlife crisis. I'd say it's the experience and wisdom that their life has and direction that it's taken with motherhood, and it's made them realize that actually I want to do more here. I have more to give, and this is just not allowing me to do that.
Why did you then decide to take this journey or go on this road yourself? Is your company a mirror image of what you experience and how you change your life?
Yeah, and I guess I suppose the best coaches and mentors can only ever take you up as far as you've gone, and your ideal client and your ideal person is usually not that many steps behind you, maybe 2 or 3 steps behind the journey that you've been on. Obviously, we're all on our own unique path. But for me, I left the corporate world after almost 19 years. I had been there for more than half of my life, and I had some amazing relationships and friendships form in that time. I got amazing experiences. I'll be forever grateful for everything that I learned, all the opportunities that I had. But I guess it got to a point where my own value system was starting to have this realization that the value set in the organization no longer matched mine. And I knew that I had more to give, and this was not, I couldn't give anymore. I could have soldiered on, I could have put the head down, but there was 2 events that happened in 2017. I lost a very dear work friend. She lost her battle to cancer after a very short illness, and she was the same age as me, very young kids. And then I lost my brother-in-law as well, and it was those 2 events were like this wake up to me that actually this is not a dress rehearsal.
Do you think that we need to have tragedy in our lives for us to actually go and I can't do this anymore? Or there has to be something that is so heartbreaking that it takes us out? It's a paradigm shift that makes us change.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a tragedy. I'd say there's definitely a catalyst. Sometimes that catalyst can be tragic. Sometimes it can be something else. I think that's a lot of the women that I'm working with at the moment have had that awakening or that realization during COVID, because it's taken the distraction out, and they've been able to, stack their day job against all their other high priority parts of their life. And they've, so I wouldn't say it's if it's actually a tragedy, but I definitely think there's something that happens. It's this great awakening. It's something that it's a reaction to a situation.
A trigger.
A trigger, exactly.
The COVID trigger.
The COVID trigger, yeah.
What percentage would you say of women are actually having a realization now because of COVID and want to have that rapid change in their business or in their life?
I don't know about a percentage, but it's huge. It's more than, I don't know, double, tripled in this year. I think women, whether we like it or not, women are, in terms of equality, we're not where we want to be. We're not where we need to be, because we're up against systems that were, let's face it, designed for a mother to stay at home, and now it's trying to fit into that. And I think, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term double, where women are doing this double shift, where they're doing the day job and then they're coming home and having to be the primary caregivers. And I'm not saying that's, any kind of a bashing of men. It's not. But there's still a gap in terms of where women are at.
Yeah, and I think if you say that, and a lot of men hear that as well, they'll feel very comfortable or very uncomfortable about that being said, because it is the realization, it's a fact that, women will do more at home. The majority, not all, the majority of women will do more at home, because it's built into them, probably from an early stage as well, seeing their mother, and it's that mindset, and it's the cellular memory and all, that they do this and they look after the family, and they're doing the work roles as well. Now, as a husband and a father, do my fair share. I probably could do more, and for us to do stuff, we do it. The chores are broke up between the household.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the same for a lot of households are. But I suppose women have this, innate nurturing and sensitive, and I suppose the fact that they birth the children in the first place, there is that nature play, that nature calling as well, that plays out, where the woman is the caregiver of the children. It's just a natural instinct, and that's where the roles kind of, the role of primary caregiver does fall to the woman.
Work revolution, where women fought for rights. There was the time that my mother stayed at home the minute she was married and was to look after the children, and and naturally progress as life goes on, these things change. But I think there was an element, okay, the egotistic male, masculine, okay, we'll give you these rights to go and work at home, but then they are to work, but then they, still had the mindset, oh, I still need to do all the other stuff that I was doing before we could go to work either. So even from the very beginning of this revolution, or this, way of life, it was skewed from the very beginning.
Yeah. The systems just were set up. So it's nearly like, and I've seen this in the corporate world, where women are progressing up that corporate ladder, but they're nearly trying to fit into a structure and a system that was designed in the patriarch, where women did stay at home and the men were the ones that went to work and went up that corporate ladder and up to executive level, or whatever industry it is. It doesn't have to be in the corporate world.
But my sister fought for women's rights. She was the one, that marched in Dublin and wanted equality and all. So that was in the 70s, and she was my biggest mentor and I could never understand why there was a division even in that pay grade between men and women. There's one thing that women have to remember: men are stronger than us. She said, we may be equal and we fight for our rights, but there is that ego out there, and men are stronger, physically stronger than us, and you have to be careful of that as well. And
Absolutely,
it was something that I kind of went, yeah, people, there will be the arguments and all, but there is that masculine and feminine, and it is changing.
Yeah, there for sure. And I suppose I certainly don't bash men. I come from a space of equality, and we are different. We are different. It's the male and the female, and we operate in different cycles. Men will have a more linear cycle of a 24-hour, whereas a woman's natural cycle is a monthly cycle. We're cycling in different, so we're different, and we have to respect those differences. But it's trying to kind of come to a place where there is that equality. But I know that for sure, that strength that your sister was talking about, that I suppose for me, how I see that is that the structure and the systems that were formed for men, they are strong, but I think they are starting to be eroded as well.
Yeah, like is the masculine sort of taken away, or is it, sometimes I wonder, is it getting to a stage where you're frightened to be masculine? There's this, and it's embracing more of the feminine, which we do need that, but is there an element of that whole masculine is slipping away as well?
I think it's balance, isn't it? It's balance, but I do think that men are leaning into their feminine energy in terms of the nurturing and the understanding and the softer that would have been before associated with women in the workplace. So it's balance. It's balance is the key.
Like, one of the things that I love is, I love being home with my kids. I love work, love at home. I love, we do all go from Zen to zero, where we're in that spiritual zone and everything is wonderful, and then your kids go wah, wah, and you go, oh, and you lose it, and that's and you drop it. But I love being able to walk my kids to school. I love being able to pick them up. I love being able to have dinner with them.
Yeah.
And I love all those things because they were the things that I didn't have. My father worked from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. because my mother had to stay at home, because that was the rules, and 7 kids. So you can figure the stress that was in there, trying to bring in that money with 7 kids in the house as well on it.
Yeah, for sure.
I know we're jumping off track, and it's just building that foundation of where we are today with COVID and what's happened, and the clients that you're speaking to, they're going, we still need to go an extra 40% or 60% to get things right.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that women are waking up to their own realization that they can make a difference.
Their own sovereignty.
Yes, absolutely. Standing in that power and realizing, I don't have the stats on it, but mumpreneurs, some of the best businesses are being created at the kitchen table. Women are realizing, especially with all of the enhancements in technology, that the 9 to 5 and the commuting, okay, we're in COVID times and there's less people commuting, but that we can build businesses around that, that are the other roles and the other hats that we wear. But I suppose we can't do it all. Women will burn out as well trying to do it all. And I think society have played, there's this feeling that, well, we can have it all. And I always say, well, we can do anything, but we can't do everything.
Yeah, but if you look at the household, if you look at the community, it all boils back to the family unit. And in a family unit, there's a male or a female, or there's a masculine or feminine, or two males or two females, but it's that family unit. And
Yeah.
that unit itself is a partnership which people grow and develop and raise children with.
Yeah.
But is that not the way that we should be looking at it within the corporate world? In a relationship, it's equal standards. It's equal partnership. It's riding the storm out together, or the joy. It's, you know, it's the old sickness as in health, but it's two people united. Should that be that should be the same within the corporate world as well?
It should be. It's just unfortunate. It's just, I suppose, where we're at now is that the systems that were built in the corporate world were not built through that lens of enabling
Sexist.
women.
Sexist.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it's a sexist world. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's boardrooms. I know that there's even boardrooms in Dublin city centre that didn't have a ladies' toilet, you know, up on the floor where their biggest boardroom, you know, up where the executives sit, didn't even have a ladies' toilet on that floor.
I have to laugh at that. Sorry.
You know,
so ridiculous.
So,
yeah.
But that's the way. That's the way. And
but what about the other way that it's swinging as well? You know, when I speak to a lot of women and I ask them about these women network groups and, you know, women only, you know, summits, and the majority just talk to me behind, you know, this is saying, I'm not into these. I don't like these. I like to be in those businesses or those environments where we have male and female. Will they get to a stage where those women networks and those will drift off, or are they still needed to help some people raise up and give them those confidence because they're frightened of men?
Yeah, I absolutely don't disagree with the women only, but I certainly agree with, you know, not all networks are like that. For example, I'm involved with Lean In, and, you know, they're a global network that was, you know, founded by Sheryl Sandberg, who's the COO of Facebook. And I think there's over 50,000 Lean In circles right across the world now. But they're open for men and women because, you know, when Sheryl Sandberg wrote her book, Lean In, it wasn't just about trying to get women up the corporate ladder. It was actually for men to actually lean in to enable this as well, because women can't do it on their own. That, you know, they're only 50% of the population. If men are not singing from the same hymn sheet in terms of that gender balance, then, you know, it will just be a divide. It won't be equal and it won't be balanced.
Yeah, but it's going back to the household. You know, there's stuff that the man can do, there's stuff that women can do, and together then it functions. And that's the same thing within business. And I just don't get it. I don't get it that women are treated, you know, in a way that is unfair within a corporate organization. For me, I just don't understand it, because I see us all as equal.
Yeah.
You know, and when people, and even today, and probably I'll have a conversation with someone in a year and we'll have this same conversation. And I'm kind of going, is it improving? Is it improving? Are companies waking up? Are companies understanding the value that both genders have within an organization? Or are we still living in a, you know, fairy tale world?
I think 2020 has been very telling, and I think, I mean, so many working parents have now become that Sky Newsman, you know, where people have had this aha moment. So you do have kids. Oh, there's your kids there on the camera, and they're waving to them. It's like, you know, it wasn't just a made up thing that the reason why they had to leave work early because the child was sick, or, you know, that they were late in because they were doing the school drop. It's like the realization that people have lives outside of their working life. So I think 2020 has accelerated. It's definitely brought stuff up to the surface, good and bad. I know there's women in organizations who have been completely snowed under, trying to homeschool, trying to, keep the household going and trying to keep their job going as well. So
what's the process that women come to you and go, oh my God, I need to get out of where I am, or I've realized I'm in the wrong, is it the wrong career, or is it the wrong, they just need to get out of their business? What is the one thing that people come to you and go, help me with? Excuse me.
I think it's more that sometimes it can be a mix. It can be that they're in the wrong career, or it can be that they're in the wrong organization. I hear the words that I absolutely detest, but I hear the word toxic so often, and it's usually a toxic culture, toxic environment, or toxic boss that is just not getting them. They don't have the autonomy anymore. They can't fight their corner. They've just lost interest. They've lost momentum. They're just not getting the fulfillment from the role anymore, and they're just not being heard and being seen. And that's basically where the shift comes. And it's like, actually, I'm not putting up with this anymore, and I need somebody to help me, to get me out there, to get me out of this role, because I deserve better. It's the self-worth, I think, is a big piece of the women that they realize I deserve more, and I'm going to go for more.
Is it sometimes when you're speaking to people that it's them that are more the problem? Do you know, where you can have the person that goes to the job and they bitch about the boss, and the boss is toxic, and they leave that job, and then they go to another company and the boss is toxic and everyone is terrible, and then they leave that job and they go to somewhere and that is toxic, and there's a pattern in their own life that's causing all this. So how do you find a balance between, everywhere I'm going, if there's something that I'm doing or something in my belief system, or are the other people being toxic?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And a huge part of what I do is mindset. But a lot of the women that come to me for help don't have that confidence, and they've actually forgotten how good they are. They've forgotten a lot of their strengths, a lot of their experiences, things that they've done in the past.
What causes them to believe that?
I think it's the conditioning of their work environment, because it doesn't play to their strengths. They're trying to get in, get the job done, and get home to family or whatever, and it's like this slow erosion of their confidence, and then realizing, I'm not putting up with this anymore. But mindset plays a huge part, and belief system. A belief system is a huge piece of the coaching process that I do, because naturally, when women become mothers, their identity changes, like it or not. That's a fact. Their identity does change, and they've lost themselves somewhere along the way.
But does that belief system or that confidence, does it go far beyond work? Is that our education system? We talk about, show me the man, I'll show you the man, and I'll give him between the age of 0 and 7. That's every child. Confidence, or something that is causing most of us to worry about or consider now, is possibly relating back to something happened to us in our youth, from 0 to probably maybe 16, 17, that can shape us in some way. And that is how our parents dealt with us, how our education system dealt with us as well. So the question I'm asking is that confidence and, that self-worth, is that affected by looking back, and even when you went on your own process to the liberation of discovering who you really are? Was it stuff that was further back?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And you, as you say, 0 to 7, that's when we have, downloaded all of our programs into our subconscious as to how we're going to see the world and the meaning that we're going to attach to the experiences. For my own journey, absolutely, I would have been fairly confident in my corporate role. I would have had the ability to, I managed, some quite large teams, and, I would have had a level of confidence. But when I stepped away from the identity of me in that corporate role, I always call that time a free fall to freedom, because I felt I found myself, the real me. But there was definitely something in terms of confidence that I had to work on, because as a child, I remember at the age of between 6 and 7, and my mother going for a parent teacher meeting and being told that I lacked confidence. I was so shy, and I just had no confidence in my own ability. And literally every parent teacher meeting, every report had some reference to confidence on it. And I tell people that now, and they laugh. They're like, "Would you stand up in front of people? You deliver workshops. You do training." But that was a very limiting belief and a conditioning that I downloaded very, very young from my environment that I had to work on, for sure. And that often is the case for the women that I work with. Somewhere along the way, they've downloaded a program that's now standing in their way and limiting them in some way.
Like, it's even the program of, you're weak if you cry, and that's within the corporate world. And I know, that's probably the wrong thing. I know some people play advantages on their weaknesses, and tell me if I'm wrong in this, that, have some women would use that crying or for control or manipulation to get what they want, or men will use the bullying and the forced in a corporate to get what they want.
I don't know. I don't know if that's. I suppose when we cry, it's a release of emotion, or when we're angry and it's a bully tactic. That's an emotion, which is a response to something that has happened. So I don't know if you could say that, when women cry, it's to try and.
I'm not saying.
Yeah.
God, no, Jesus.
No.
I'd be lynched if we said that.
I was gonna say.
Why, Jesus, yeah. No, I know people in the past, and they would laugh about it later on, saying they would use the crying tactic within a corporate to win an argument. So it would be crocodile tears that would have been put on. So,
I suppose I would challenge that, because it's around the reaction of the person that's on the receiving end of those tears, and what they do with that.
It's manipulation on both sides, really.
Absolutely. There's two people there, but it's that emotional response, and perhaps the systems in corporate environment are not always highly emotionally intelligent, to be able to react and deal, deal with that response.
Yeah, but there's also that, the fittest survive and the dog eat dog, and we go to that goalpost. And like, I worked in an organization which had thousands of people, and it was very highly stressed, and it was very male orientated, and that stress came with casualties because of the environment that was in it as well. In your opinion, where is corporate world going? Have we crossed that Rubicon, or have we is there so much to do, where we have that equal footing?
I think there's definitely still work to do. I saw somebody refer to, large corporate organizations are becoming tense as a casualty of COVID. The tents are just starting to collapse now. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how. I mean, I'm out of the corporate world. I can only go by the women that come to me for help that are coming from a corporate background. In terms of, I suppose, where it all comes back is the leadership. You want to change something. You want to change a team overnight. You just have to change one thing, and that's the leader. And I think in the corporate world, not all organizations, but I've certainly come up against a few leaders where they're one extreme or the other. It's the extremes where they don't have that balance, they don't have that fairness, or they don't have that the human side, I guess is the word.
Give me I'll give you my, what's the saying? If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
That sort of... This
micromanagement, this power, I suppose there's always a power dynamic, isn't there? So it's that power over. And I think, I was so blessed. I had some amazing leaders and managers and mentors in my time in the corporate that I learned so much from. But I learned so much from the ones that I found challenging, that did operate from a place of power over. So I suppose, it is that piece. It's that power over, as opposed to that power to, or help. The best leaders that I've had are the ones that show, compassion, empathy, the softer skills that allow you to, to be vulnerable, where, you can have the courage to say, I've made a mistake, or I've messed up here, and how are we going to work together and fix it? So I think there's definitely still work to do in that space.
But what is it? Have you ever come across a person who then, has complained about everything? They get onto you and they just complain about their boss and their husband and their father, and everyone in work is against them. Do you kind of go, okay, let's step back here? And are you honest enough to say, and I don't even know, how do you say it, that you kind of go, it's not them, it's actually you that needs to change?
Yeah, and I suppose it's allowing them to be brave enough to gently turn that mirror back inward, to look at themselves. But it would be where you recognize a pattern that's playing out in, as you say, in work or in home or in relationships. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm enabling people to stand in their own strength and their own power, and to change, to change the narrative, because that's all conditioning of the ego. It's not their true best self. It's, that's not going to unleash their talents and their gifts. It's just something that got covered up over time.
So what would you say, what is the process? What empowers someone? What do you feel empowers someone to be who they are? Because I think we all are going through, especially with COVID and lockdown, we're all going through different stages in our thought process, in our life. We're all up 1 minute, down the next. Like 1 minute we love COVID and we love, doing the gardening and spending time at home, and then the next part of COVID we drop down and we love to spend time with the person we didn't even like if we saw them. So what's going on out there? I'm going to ask you this, what's going on out there, and what are your thoughts on how people can embrace this 2020 for them to be living a better life in the future?
Yeah, that's a big question. I suppose, where I always start when I'm working, say, with a new client, is because success is going to mean different things to different people. Your version of success could be money, mine could be something completely different. So success is so unique to every individual. But what I would say is the best place to start is your value system and realizing where maybe that you're living your life out of kilter and not in alignment with your values and what you hold as your high priority items. I mean, if you value I don't know, if you value fairness and you're working in an environment that's not feeling very fair, then you are going to keep coming up against this all the time. You are going to keep coming up and against conflict and disagreement, and that is going to be draining. So it's trying to find the opportunities where people are going to be energized and in alignment with their values. And I know that sounds cliche. People throw value systems around all the time, but it's the only place to start to build a solid foundation for change and transformation.
Yeah, I think it's the the bedrock of anybody is understanding what your values are, and you know that. I always say to people is pick your 5 to 7 values and really look at them, because they are the bedrock, the foundation of where you can grow. Now they can change from time to time, but at least you have something on it. What are your values?
Well, I consciously every day live my values. I didn't always. Love, honesty, trust, kindness, and positivity are my top ones. And I'd like to think on a daily basis that the interactions that I have, the people that I work with, my family, I suppose my family are probably the biggest test bed of values, because that's where we can be, where we can get triggered the most, but consciously in alignment with those values. I'd like people to say about me that if I got squeezed, that's what would come out of me: positivity, kindness, and trust.
When did your, let's call it, your spiritual journey take place?
Oh, Joe, you're hitting me with the big questions today. My spiritual journey, most definitely, I would say, when I experienced a miscarriage in 2015. I would say that was the biggest, hardest, most challenging thing that I'd come up against at the age of 35. So maybe that was a midlife crisis, to come back to your words earlier on, your terminology. But it was as I talk about a lot, is Joseph Campbell, the dark night of the soul. Yeah, my friends would actually slag me, and growing up, that I lived in the house of the Waltons. Some of my friends wanted to actually move in. I had this, and it still is. It's like this perfect, family unit. I had such an amazing childhood, I suppose a perfect. I don't know if there's no such word as perfect, but when I never thought that I would experience, I'd lost grandparents and people close to me, but when I experienced the miscarriage, it was a different type of a loss, because it was something that only I had to have. I had this baby inside me for nearly 11 weeks, and nobody else in the outside world could understand that I was mourning and grieving for this. And certainly the route I opted, I can very, very clearly remember stepping into my power in navigating that experience of the miscarriage. And I know that that was a catalyst where I started doing things differently for me, but it was a conscious choice.
That's mad. Yeah, that's very powerful. That realization.
Yeah, it was, and I've talked about this before, and talking about it has been a huge part of that healing. I can talk about it now without that emotional charge now, but I can remember lying on the hospital bed in the Coombe Hospital, about to have the procedure that would end the pregnancy, and I remember being absolutely petrified. I'd never been put to sleep before, and as I was lying there, the anaesthetist asked me what was my blood type, and I couldn't think. I was blank. And he said, you have the best blood type and it's the easiest one to remember. It's B positive. And it was just in those words that he said that to me. He said, B positive. And it was like I had been everything but positive up to that point in the 10 days prior to that operation. So it was that's those words from the stranger that actually I have the power as to how I'm viewing this experience and what am I learning from this and what am I going to change as a result of this, because otherwise it's happened and it's needless suffering. We create our own suffering, but it's a waste of an experience if I don't learn from it and change as a result.
It's interesting. It's a conversation I had with Martina Crudden. She did an interview with us there a couple of weeks back, and it was her as well saying the same thing. It's that power, and taking your own power back. Why I asked the question of spiritual journey, because I think a lot of people are wakening up at the moment. And for me, I'm more openly speaking about my spiritual journey than ever before. Before, I felt that it could only be spoken about behind closed doors in secret locations. And when I really sort of came out, I felt like I came out of the closet.
Yeah.
But
suddenly in your nude.
Yeah. But I still feel I have one foot in and one foot out, because understanding that that's our truth, and understanding that, the more that I learn and the more that I accept it and the more that I understand what's going on in life, I still have that barrier in embracing that within the corporate world. That's, and that will change, but I need to go through this process. Would you feel the same yourself, or have you completely embraced it and open about it?
I think I'm very open, and I'm, in terms of my spiritual journey, my beliefs and how I see the world, because that's my understanding of spiritual journey, is actually when we realize that power within us, from within, that it's all within, it's all everything that, if we don't go within, we'll go without. And but I think I'm very I speak my truth, and I'm very authentic. I'm very authentic in what I do, but I do have the emotional intelligence to understand my audience and where I'm speaking to, and realize that not everybody's ready to hear my experience and of my spiritual journey. So, but that said, there's a lot of people in the corporate world that I would speak to and would get it. So it's not that and it's not that I'm not ready to go and speak in the corporate world about a spiritual awakening. I think it's just understanding if people are ready to actually hear that message.
But isn't it amazing, because we think that when we have this, we're all alone. But the more people you speak to, the more people you go, oh, you think that as well? Yeah, okay. And I think I think my own opinion on that is because we were in Ireland anyway, we were heavily influenced by the Catholic Church. And when the Catholic Church in Ireland fell because of all the misgivings that they had done within the church, that everybody went the total opposite way and cut off total from religion and spirituality, because we put it all under the same umbrella. And even though we understand that this is the spiritual end, so we feel that people might think it's the religious end as well. Which I push away because of the misgivings that they have done.
And I suppose, I have a slightly different view. I'm very connected with the community. It's more, for me, church for me is community, because that is is hugely important to me. You know, that the community aspect. I think that's where the lines of religion maybe have gotten distorted along the way. We had a fabulous the priest who actually married us. He passed away this year, Father Gabriel, but he's a great family friend, and he used to always say, you know, when people were getting involved in the community back up home in Dublin, and he'd say, you know, I only want spiritual fruits. I don't want religious nuts, you know. So
Yeah,
I loved that.
I love that actually. Yeah,
I loved that, the
that's
spiritual fruits instead of religious
religious
nuts.
nuts on it.
Yeah.
Because
So
what I'm even learning now is that I'm starting to get back into that. But I'm also, because up to last week, if you asked me, I would have said to you, I hate religion. I hate dogma religion. I have spoken very strongly about it. But I'm now understanding that it's not the religious order itself. It's the individuals that have made it toxic and have turned it away to what it is. And we need to get rid of that toxicity and those people so it can go back to what it was originally designed to be. And that's for us to go within.
yeah, and I think it's that mass covering up, isn't it? It's
That's
where
the first time I
the
told someone that, actually. There we go.
wow, very
You're
brave.
drawing it out of me there.
I'm pulling it out, all the spiritual fruits of your. But you know, it's that covering up, I guess, of ego.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I suppose nobody, priests, nuns in the past, they didn't go into that vocation. They, you know, for, you know, to intentionally do bad and do wrongdoing. Because I suppose my belief is that there's good and bad in everybody. It's depending on what side of whether we're shining. You know, people will get the good or the bad, or the dark or the light.
But
You know,
I think the light is shining through more now than ever
yeah,
before on it.
yeah.
Tell me, I know we wander off and on my interviews into where the conversation
Fascinating.
is.
I've probably shown a lot of vulnerability today, so you're a brave man.
Tell me, how does someone know that they're screwed? How does someone know that they're not in the right place? Is there a question that you ask them, or do they just spill the beans to you, or what is it, and what are the steps that they need to take to get their own power? And that's what it is. You said it there earlier. It's you are teaching people. You're giving them back their power.
Yeah, yeah, essentially, and that might be that they change their mindset and their outlook on the role that they're in, and they might be able to move even sideways in the organization. A lot of people, though, when they come to me, are just ready to leave, and they just want out because they've just had enough. It's got to a point of bubbling over,
Okay.
and something was going to pay the price.
Well, what would you say then? Okay, what would you say to someone who is listening to this and they're having that ha moment, apart from call you know?
Nice plug there.
what advice would you give them? Say you have, you've got 2 minutes. What would you say to that person?
For them to realize that they can exist on the outside.
Yeah. What have we left out, or what have we missed in this conversation that you'd want to share with that person?
I suppose it's, for me, I always come back to, well, what would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you do if fear wasn't in your way? And that's usually where the magic is. There's usually a golden nugget in there, because if what they're doing right now is not what they would do if they weren't afraid or in fear, and there was nothing standing in their way, like the reasons that we make up, like not enough time, not enough money, because they're all illusions. So I would say whatever the answer to that question is the direction that they need to start channeling their energy and focus on.
That's very good, and that's very powerful. And in those simple words, what would you do if you weren't afraid? That's, yeah, and that there in itself is the beginning of a journey that could truly release someone on it.
Yeah, because for me it just comes back down to, it's, my father has this very very cool on his WhatsApp status, and he's not technology minded. He won't mind me saying that. One life, live it.
Yeah.
Just one life, live it. Yeah. And it's powerful because we don't need regrets, and there's no room for regrets.
I think we need to laugh more. I think out of I was speaking at an event there during the week to about 200 people, and I was saying to him, we talk about spiritual seriousness or corporate seriousness. We've all forgot to laugh. We forgot to take the piss out of each other. The Irish who were saints and scholars, and we'd slag the arse off each other. We're forgetting to do that.
Yeah.
I think we all need to start doing that as well on it.
Yeah, because I suppose it's fun, isn't it? It's not to be taken too seriously. Yeah. That there should be fun. We when we're babies and we come into the world and we have no conditioning. We just know when to laugh. We just know when to smile, and we just know when we're content. But we lose that as we journey through life. It's getting back to that.
I get in the kitchen and I'm dancing like this, and the two girls will come out and look at me, and they start dancing with me and everything as well, and having a laugh. And
long may it last, Joe.
When's the book? And the reason why I say that is, my gut intuition tells me there will be one, and it's going to be very powerful. So when is the book, Jennifer?
The book is actually already started, but I haven't told a lot of people that. So
really? I just have this.
The book is started.
Yeah, I was just feeling this intuition that the book. Yeah.
Yeah, the book is started, and it's going to be.
Let me guess, it's going to be a name around empowerment of some sort.
Well, it's going to be helping people find their buzz, and their buzz for me is their personal power, and that's after anything that life, any of the curveballs that life might throw, even a global pandemic, how to find your buzz.
When will that be? We're now giving you. 45,000 people will hear you now saying when the book is. So you have to finish it now, because
I do. Yeah. No, it will be. It'll be sometime in 2021 for sure.
Brilliant. Jennifer, if someone wants to reach out to you and ask you for their help, or read one of your messages, or connect with you on, I know that you're very vocal on social media as well. Where can they get in touch with you?
They can find me on Instagram under BeGeal Coaching, Facebook, LinkedIn. My website is begealcoaching.ie. And they Google Jennifer Maher, and a little golden bee should pop up. The little bee, yeah. So that's me.
And website address and all that.
Yeah.
Just under your name.
Yeah, under me. And BeGeal. So Geal is the Irish word for bright. People often ask me that. What does that mean? But the B is a symbol for brightness, community, and personal power. So it was always going to be a B. Perfect. So yeah, that's how they'll recognise me. And bees show up now in the maddest and strangest of places.
Yeah, there you. My wife is seeing owls everywhere.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's
the wisdom.
the wisdom. Yeah, on it.
Fab.
Jennifer,
Love it, Joe. Thanks
thanks
so
for coming
much.
on the show. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
And remember, here at Dublin South FM, we're interviewing plenty of people around the world, conscious leaders, and that's why we have the Conscious Business Podcast, which is part of the Conscious Business Academy, offering purpose, profit and prosperity in your life through soulful selling, mindful marketing, conscious leadership and creative culture. If you want to reach out to me, it's joedalton.ie. You have an awesome week and take care and look after yourself.
You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM, Crossing the Rubicon.